All right, welcome back, fellow scientists. So if you'll remember, in our first two videos, we did learning objectives, why I should care, and then a little bit of background with energy-carrying molecules. In this video, we are going to have some background on photosynthesis. We're going to dive right in, and we are going to be introduced to the life equation, and then we are also going to look at the structure of a chloroplast. So we'll be addressing learning objective 1 and learning objective 2. So without any further ado, let me get a blank slide up here. What color should I use? Yep, okay, I heard green, and that's totally appropriate because we're doing photosynthesis. So go ahead and write down in your notes, photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, and we're going to get a little bit of background. We're going to discuss some terms that apply both to photosynthesis and cellular respiration, and we'll see how in a second or two. So, background. Okay, so two words for you, autotroph and heterotroph. Autotroph and heterotroph. Okay, so we need to know the meaning of these words, right? So these are describing different kinds of organisms and different ways that they get food, basically. So if we break down the word autotroph, we hear the prefix auto, right? Like an automatic transmission. And then troph, I'm not sure exactly what it means. I kind of think of it as trough, like a feeding trough, like food. So I think of autotroph as a self-feeder or self-eater. Basically, the idea is that it makes its own food. Right? It makes its own food. And this isn't like you or I going down to the kitchen and making like mac and cheese or something like that. But this is literally taking the carbon dioxide and the water from the atmosphere, using a little bit of sunlight energy and making sugar from that. So it's taking the raw materials, and it's not baking, it's doing a chemical reaction, which I guess baking is a chemical reaction, so it's a bad example. Anyways, I digress. So then let's look at heterotroph. So again, we can break this word down. Hetero means different or other, and troph I still think of like a feeding trough, like food. So these type of organisms, they can't make their own food, they have to go eat a different organism. They have to eat another organism to get its energy. So autotrophs makes its own food, heterotrophs eats another organism to get energy. Eats another to get energy. Right, so this would be like the grizzly bear eating the salmon. This would be like the cow eating the grass. This would be like the fungus eating the bread, right? The mold is even a heterotroph because even though some molds might look green, they don't do photosynthesis. They're not autotrophs. They don't make their own food. They have to grow on something. Lichens is a totally, it's a symbiotic relationship of two different organisms. We won't get that deep into the weeds right now. So plants, right, they're classified as autotrophs. They make their own food. And a lot of people think, oh, plants do photosynthesis and animals do cellular respiration. Well, not really. Plants do photosynthesis and cellular respiration, right? Because plants make their own food, so they're autotrophs. But then what do they do with that food? What do they do with that sugar? Well, they have to do cellular respiration as well, right? Heterotrophs, they don't do photosynthesis, they just do cellular respiration, right? So autotrophs, we can think of those as plants. They have chloroplast, they have mitochondria, so they do photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Heterotrophs, we can think of those as animals. They just do cellular respiration. All right, so now that we have that background, now let's go ahead and be introduced to the life equation. So go ahead and write that down, the life equation. Life equation. All right, so here's the life equation. We're going to start out with, like I said, a little bit of CO2. We're going to add some water. We're going to add some energy. In photosynthesis is in the form of sunlight. Right? And all that is going to combine and mix and go through a chemical reaction, and it's going to make sugar, glucose. Remember, we made this in chapter 2, so it's C6H12. 6. That's the molecule that you built that kind of had the hexagon, right? And then we also have as a waste product, believe it or not, something that is near and dear to our hearts, literally, is oxygen. All right, so this is a chemical reaction. As you can tell, it's not balanced. So what I'd like you to do, pause the video and see if you can balance this on your own, and then unpause it and come back and see if you got it right. So remember, use the tally method, right? All that good stuff. Okay, sweet. So hopefully you got the fact that we need 6 CO2, 6 H2O, 1 C6H12O6, and then 6 oxygen. So that's the life equation. We haven't gone into explaining the life equation yet. That'll be the next video, but at least we presented it and we have the general idea, and you can start memorizing this for the test. Okay, and then the last thing we need to do in this video is we need to look at the structure of a chloroplast. Right, so chloroplast structure, because that's where photosynthesis happens. Chloroplast structure. All right, here we go. So as with most things in biology, we're going to start out with a circle, an oval, which is a horrible oval, and then we're going to have, you know, tiny little ovals kind of in the chloroplast, and we're going to have them in columns or in stacks, I guess you could say, kind of like that, and they're all throughout the chloroplast, right? And they should kind of be connected. They should kind of be stacked on top of each other, and then the stacks are going to be connected, you know, with little bridges, blah blah blah, like that, right? So this we're going to call the outer membrane. Membrane. Right here, we're going to call this, each little circle is made up of, it's called a thylakoid, and it's made up of what we call a thylakoid membrane. Thylakoid, thylakoid membrane. Right, and remember, membranes are phospholipid bilayers, so we draw our little space alien, right, and then we have our fatty acid tails, like that, and then it's a bilayer, so we have to have our hydrophilic heads kind of down there, right? And so this would be a section of the outer membrane, and then inside the outer membrane, then we have our thylakoid membrane. So outer membrane, thylakoid membrane look like that. Obviously, they have different proteins, they perform different functions, but just to kind of remind you, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a membrane. All right, so then we can look at these stacks, and these stacks have a special name. They're called grana. And then everything that is inside the outer membrane but is not a thylakoid, that is called the stroma. That's the stroma. All right, and that's the structure of the chloroplast. So this has been Mr. Leo. We have looked at autotrophs and heterotrophs. We've looked at the life equation, and we've looked at the chloroplast structure. Next video, we're going to actually get into the process of photosynthesis. So be prepared for that. It's going to be amazing. I will see you. Thanks for watching. I will see you on the flip side.